share with you one way that a grammar concept, such as a verb tense, can be presented to your students during the presentation stage of your lesson plan. And then I'll share with you a practice and production activity that can be used as well. So let's get started. As Chapter 5 states, you should provide context for the grammar point. To do this, you should present a reading or listening that makes use of that grammar. This is needed to help your students understand where this grammar exists in authentic language use. After going over a brief reading or listening with your students, you can move on to pull out specific language and discuss the form. The teacher can show sentences that contain the verb tense written in them. These can be displayed in a PowerPoint, they can be written on the board, or they can be projected. So have a look at these example sentences that contain the verb tense. I've been sitting at my desk all morning. She has been waiting here for 2 hours. You have been studying for 5 straight hours. So now the teacher might ask the students, what do these sentences have in common? Students might say something like, they all contain have, been, and the ing. So then the teacher might ask, does anyone know what this tense is called? Some students may know, others may not know. The teacher can display the name of the tense on the board. So in this case, this is the present perfect continuous tense. It's also called the present perfect progressive tense. It's important to display the name of the tense, and it's also important to display the form. So in this case, the form is have or has plus been and the present participle, which is the ing. And in this case, the present perfect progressive tense is used to indicate the duration of an activity that began in the past and continues to the present, and it's usually still happening. Now, the teacher might further explain some time words that are related to this tense, so it's helpful to display these as well. So in this tense, there are time words that show a duration of time, such as all morning, all day, all week, for, and since. Further, the teacher can present a few more examples of the tense, and the teacher can be sure to underline the tense and the duration of time. Then the teacher can ask students if they can come up with their own examples of the tense. So students can come to the whiteboard and write their own examples and be sure that they underline the tense and the duration of time. Lastly, the teacher can give any further explanations or situations where this tense is used and provide necessary examples. So this is a grammar presentation that can be used during the presentation stage of your lesson plan. Now let's look at a practice activity that can be used afterwards. This practice activity is called matching questions and answers. In advance, the teacher will prepare index cards with a question on one card and an answer on another card. The teacher will want to have enough for 1 per student. So for example, if you have 10 students, you'll have 5 question cards and 5 answer cards for a total of 10 cards. It might be helpful to color code the cards, having the questions in blue and the answers in black, for example. So have a look at these example cards. One question says, what music have you been listening to recently? And the answer, I've been listening to K-pop recently. Another question says, have you been exercising this month? And the answer, I've been running and swimming almost every day this month. And another question, what have you been thinking about buying? And the answer, I've been thinking about buying a new laptop. So those are some examples using the tense. Once the cards are ready, you can mix them up and pass out 1 card to each student. Students are going to mingle until they find their match, their question and answer match. Once they find their match, they can read their question and answer to each other. And then as a group, students can share their questions and answers as a class. Furthermore, as an extension, you can mix up the cards and pass them out again and have students do the activity again, or you can have a new set of cards to pass out for students to answer new questions and answers. So matching is a good practice activity because it's controlled with specific answers. Now let's look at a production activity. This production activity is called Grammar Dice. Students are going to be working in pairs, and they're going to first of all make their own grammar die, one per pair. Instructions and templates for making a grammar die can be found online by doing a search, and it's helpful if the teacher can walk the students through the process of making that die, especially for younger students. So have a look at this example of a template for a die. Before students start folding their die, they're going to write a question on each side of the die that contains the verb tense that we're talking about. The teacher can write sample questions on the whiteboard to get students started. So here's a few example questions. How long have you been studying at this school? What healthy foods have you been eating recently? So here's an example of a template with the questions written on it. And here's an example of the finished die. So once students have their die ready, they can start the activity. They're going to determine who goes first. This can be done by flipping a coin, playing rock, scissors, paper, or simply by stating that the older or younger student will go first. So to begin, the first player shakes the die and reads the question. The second player, the partner, will answer the question in his or her own words using the verb tense. Then the second player will roll the die and ask the question, and the first player will answer the question in his or her own words with the verb tense. So students are going to continue shaking the die and answering the questions until both students have answered all of the questions. Students don't need to re-answer a question if they shake the same side twice. They can simply reshake to get a new question. And to keep track of the answered questions, students can write a checklist in their notebook, and they can list the numbers 1 through 6 in a column. So as they answer the questions, they can check the question off the list. And once they've answered all the questions, then the activity is complete. So this is a great production activity because it's open-ended and it allows students to answer the questions in their own way and to produce the verb tense. So I hope this grammar presentation and these practice and production activities have been helpful and that you can use them in your classroom sometime soon. Thanks so much for your attention. I'll see you next time.